So you're coming to New York City and you're ready to see your first Broadway show. What do you need to know before you go? Hey friends, my name is Katharine Quinn. I am a 30-something living in New York City and I work on Broadway. Last year I worked on the shows Shucked and How to Dance in Ohio. This year I am working on The Great Gatsby on Broadway, other shows TBD. As always, the blog family is the first to find out what's next. But we're going to talk about you. I am so excited that you're interested in seeing a show on Broadway. I had the great fortune of growing up seeing shows, seeing theater that was local, seeing touring shows, and my mom even took me to New York for the first time when I was 8 or 9 years old. And we did a lot of rush and standing room and lotteries. So we saw shows for super cheap, but I got to see Broadway shows as a young kid. So I've always known like the protocols, what to expect, etc. Not everyone has that experience, and if you fit into the latter category, or if it's been a minute and you want a refresher, then this video is for you. I make all kinds of theater content, so if you're looking for like how to find the cheapest tickets, I will link that up here. If you are looking for some recommendations, I'll link that up here, of shows to see, and I have tons of other content that you can sort of rifle through as well. All right, let's start. First things first. Buying your tickets. Again, like I said, I made an entire video on this, but in a nutshell, the main types of tickets that you can buy are your standard price tickets. Where does one buy a standard price Broadway ticket? You've got a couple options. You can either go to the box office directly when you come into town for most of the shows. So there's like 35 shows on Broadway right now. I would say for 33 of them, probably. You don't need to worry about getting your ticket in advance if you're not particular about where you're sitting and you're wanting to save on some money. If you go in person to the box office, you're not gonna have to pay any fees. Fees sound like they might be just like chump change. No, fees can be absolutely exorbitant. Whether you're getting them on Telecharge or Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, or TodayTix, fees suck. If you go to the box office, you can enjoy free fee tickets, which is fantastic. The average Broadway ticket price, including fees, is $168. The average Broadway ticket price without fees is around $120, just to give you a general idea. However, Broadway tickets can be as cheap as $25. For instance, the show that I'm working on, The Great Gatsby, there's a student rush for $25. If you want an entire list of Broadway rush and standing room policies, you can just Google Playbill Broadway Rush Standing Room and they'll have an entire list of every Broadway show so that you can know what your options are. Rush just means that every day when the box office opens, which is usually 10 a.m., except on Sundays, it's usually like noon, a little later. Just make sure it's slightly different for each theater, but generally 10 a.m., you get to the theater early, you wait in a line, and you can get a rush ticket. Sometimes these are partial view seats, sometimes they're slightly obstructed, usually they're fine. Sometimes you're just in the front row, which means you get great action on people's faces, but like sometimes you're looking up at set pieces like this. Honestly, totally fine. I've had great rush experiences. If you're curious what the rush standings are currently, all you have to do is look up a rush report. There are folks who do this on TikTok, and there are folks that do this on message boards like Reddit and Broadway World. Let's say you're interested in seeing The Outsiders. You could Google The Outsiders Rush Report, or you could go to TikTok and look up my friend Brian the BA, look up his most recent Broadway Rush Report and see how early people got in line for tickets so that you're not waking up like, I've gotten in line crazy early, needlessly. Like when Jersey Boys was first out, and this was like a long time ago, I got there at 6 a.m. in the morning on like a February morning during slow season because I was like, it's a big hit, I'll never get tickets. I was the only person there for hours, so spare yourself the drama, buy yourself a coffee. Most of the time, if you're there at 9 a.m., you're gonna be good to go. Standing room. Standing room only happens if a show sells out. Most shows on Broadway are not selling out, so most shows on Broadway are not currently offering standing room. Lottery. Lottery is different for every single show. Again, I direct you to this Playbill article that is so handy. I'll also link it down in the show notes below. Lottery can either be digital or in person. Most of the time these days it's digital. All the shows are different, whether your lottery you find out day of, the day before, the first day of the week. So just check out if there's like shows that you know you want to see, then make sure you look up their policies and plan like a week out what days you're going to aim to try to get those cheaper seats. There's also fantastic apps at your disposal. So let's say you're like, I don't want to go to the box office, I want to buy my tickets in advance. The two places I would first recommend you to are either directly through the show's website or through TodayTix. TodayTix is a platform for buying tickets. It used to be that it was more for discounted seats. Sometimes you can still snag a deal, but mostly it's just an easier, more user-friendly way to buy Broadway tickets. How do you decide what show you want to see? My friends, I direct you to this video over here. Also, you can leave a comment. I try to be as quick as possible. Like, you can be like, we're a family of 4 and our youngest kid is 12 years old. What's a family-friendly recommendation? And I feel like the answers would be like Back to the Future, Aladdin. It depends on what your kids are into. So we've talked about buying tickets. We've talked about what show it is that you want to see. Now we're going to talk about where to stay, where we're going to eat, etc., etc. It depends on what kind of Broadway experience you want to have. I am a very value-minded human, which is to say that I will splurge only if it feels like it's worth it. Times Square is a pretty big money suck. I don't love eating out in Times Square in particular, so I direct you to 9th Avenue. So if you're looking at the grid of Manhattan, if you look west, the theater district is largely on Broadway, 7th Avenue, and 8th Avenue. That's kind of where all of the theaters are sandwiched between. If you go 1 avenue west, at any rate, 9th Avenue, magical restaurants. Usually a little bit cheaper. I direct you to 9th Avenue. I also really like, Eater articles that will tell you lists of fantastic spots. Yelp is a little gauche these days, so often I find that Google Maps reviews are perfectly sufficient in letting you know, like, is this really decent Mexican food, or is it just sort of like, it's tourist Mexican food? There's so much amazing food in New York, and honestly, there is a lot of great food in Midtown. I would just steer as far away from like Broadway and 7th Avenue as humanly possible. In terms of where to stay, the subways are safe. They're accessible price-wise. Every subway ride is $2.75, so it's not how far you go, it's just like per ride. That said, you could have some flexibility in terms of where you stay. If you are looking to rush a bunch of shows, it might be easiest for you to stay in Midtown. I just love looking on hotels.com, setting my outer range of a certain price point, and I don't care about stars as much as I care about user experience, so I'll just set it to however folks enjoyed it and then go from there. Pro tip, check your showtime. Broadway showtimes, I'll throw up a grid of what they look like here. If you just Google weekly Broadway schedule playbill, again, we love playbill for this, there's a gorgeous weekly schedule for the current week. So you can't look at the shows at a glance in the future. For that, you can go to the individual show websites, but of the current week, you can look at the show times, and typically they're the same. Every now and then, shows are gonna have a different schedule, so you wanna double check before you go. For instance, the Tony Awards at the time of filming this are in a little over a week. And the week of the Tonys, a lot of folks have different changes. So like holiday weeks, etc. For us, the Tonys are a holiday. You just want to make sure you know your show times. Also, some shows start at 7, 7:30, 8 o'clock. We have some shows starting at 5, 6 p.m., 3 p.m. Honestly, it's great. It means that you have more opportunities to see fabulous Broadway shows because the show times are getting a little more staggered. Bad news is it's easy to mess up your show time. So just do me a favor and double check. How to dress at a Broadway show. My friends, I'm so happy to report it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I go see shows out of town and I'll dress like this and be like, oh no, everyone's in dresses. Everyone. As a city, we sort of collectively were just like tennis shoes, right? Because it's New York. And like some people wear dresses and some people get dressed up, and like, I think it depends on the show too. I think a lot of folks dress up for Gatsby, and I think that's really fun. And we've got a gorgeous lobby. They'll take a selfie in the mirror. It's great. So like, do you? All I'm saying is, for somebody who doesn't love dressing up, you can wear whatever you want to a Broadway theater. I mean, I would say like smart casual, look put together, but you don't need a suit, you know? Unless you want to, in which case, live your life. Food and drink at the show is expensive. If this is part of your experience, if you're really jonesing for a bevy, maybe just like get an extra bevy at your dinner. Maybe just like scout out a good happy hour. Listen, buy from concessions, it's great. I'm just going to warn you, the options are pretty much the same at every theater, and they are outrageously expensive. I am not the decision maker here. It just is what it is. Like a double is gonna cost you literally almost $40 for a single drink of just basic liquor and soda. Like, okay, just to like prepare you for what's ahead. I'm not saying bring your little protein bar into the theater, but like, maybe we're in the theater, but don't unwrap it during the show. Thank you so much. Bathroom lines, they're no joke. They really aren't. If you're on the aisle, do everyone a favor and just scoot on out. If you don't need to use the restroom, just get out of the way of the people who do. If you do need to use the restroom, we want to use a comfortable power walk to get down to those restrooms. These theaters are 100 years old, which is probably a good point to address in general. Regrettably, Broadway theaters, by and large, are not very accessible. Accessible seating tends to be fairly expensive because it's all in the orchestra. The bathrooms are sometimes inaccessibly located. Also, the seats are built for 1920s bodies, not 2020s bodies, which is to say they're teensy-tansy. By and large, there are some exceptions. The Hudson Theater, great seats. Palace Theater just got renovated. Great seats. Bad lobby, great seats. Just prepare yourself. Know that that's your experience. And know that people like me in the industry are advocating for a better Broadway going experience. And just like get absorbed into the magic and try to forget about your teensy-tiny chair. And we're so happy to have you. But yeah, bathroom lines are no joke. So, beeline. Etiquette and rules, rephones, etc. Phones are not, it is not a concert. Actors are protected by unions. And for that reason, you should not take your phone out during the show. Please don't text your friends during the show. Please do not attempt to film. You will get yelled at by an usher. You will be made to feel a little uncomfy. I don't recommend it. Let's just spare everyone the discomfort. Don't bring your phone out during the show. There's an exception. If you want to brag to your friends that you got to see a really great Broadway show, which you should absolutely do, there are two things that are super standard that you can do. Before the show, you can get your selfie. You can get your selfie with the curtain. You can do your playbill in front of you and, take a photo like this with the set. We love. Oh, intermission, be free. Post whatever you want. And then curtain call. Curtain call is where all the actors bow and, we're excited for them. You can film it. And in fact, you should film it because it's really exciting. You get to see the actors as human beings for the first time. I mean, during the show, they're characters. Plus, it's a great way to share the love of Broadway with everyone. So just so you know, you will get stinky glares from people if you're on your phone during the show. Please don't do it. It is very distracting. It is against union rules not to have your phone out necessarily, although that's against theater protocol. But photo, video, recording of any kind is prohibited, just for your brain. Intermission. Intermission is usually 15 minutes, smack dab in the middle of the show. More and more shows these days don't have intermission, and it's actually a great thing because that means the show's 90 to 100 minutes, which I love. Again, bathroom lines, concession lines. I like to go in with a plan. Live your dreams, but I like to go in with a plan of okay, am I gonna need to use the restroom? So lights are up, I'm gonna tell my seatmate, excuse me, I'm gonna use the restroom, off we go. You don't need to be rude about it, but just purpose. I find that purpose is useful at intermission. If you don't need to use the restroom or don't need a drink, then just converse with the people around you. Making friends sitting next to you, part of the community of theater, it's a beautiful thing. No pressure, but it can be fun. Most of the time, people stand during a standing ovation. You don't have to, it's not required, but if folks stand around you, you can also rise to your feet. If you're that's not my journey, or it's not accessible for you to do so, don't worry about it. Stay seated. Okay, the show is over. It's so great. You had such a good time. We've stood. We've made sure that we have our phone. Hopefully we had our phone because we were filming curtain call. But if not, we're gonna make sure we've got our phone on our person because sometimes you're standing and you applaud, you drop it to the ground, and then it's oh my gosh, you're at the subway and you gotta go back. I don't speak from experience. Anyway, then we amble out of the theater and we're so excited. The exit music is playing from the orchestra. We're loving it. You're oh my gosh, those actors were incredible. I need to go to the stage door. You can ask one of the house managers or an usher where the stage door is and they will direct you. So you go to the stage door and we are all gonna gently wait with one another. It's just another community experience. Sometimes actors take photos with you. Sometimes you can take photos of the actor, but they're not gonna take photos with individuals. That's most common. And then they can sign your playbill. Sometimes people bring cute shirts or stuffed animals or whatever to sign. You can totally do that. And it's also a super fun part of the experience. And then the last thing is help spread the word. So you can take photos at the stage door. You can take photos as you enter the theater. The lobbies are fair game. Before the show intermission, curtain call are all totally fair game. Broadway is the love of my life and also just a completely singular experience. It is live theater. It is never the same 2 nights in a row. It just isn't. You might see an understudy. You might see what's called a swing, which is somebody in the ensemble. It's confusing, but basically an understudy. You could see someone's first night in a role. And every single night, those actors are going to make tiny different little choices in their performance. So there's something so magical about seeing a TV show has been prepped and packaged and everyone is watching the exact same thing. The show that you're seeing is unlike the show that someone is going to see tomorrow, or a different show you'll see the next night. So it's truly magical being wrapped up with that big orchestra. It's just a glorious communal experience. So in the event that you were a little bit nervous about protocol or how to handle your first Broadway show, I hope this put your mind at ease. We are so happy to have you at the theater. We really, really are. I'm very passionate about bringing more audiences into the theater, and I know that it can be intimidating. So again, if you have any questions that I can answer for you, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to follow more content here, more theater-y things, or living in New York City, feel free to follow me on Instagram or TikTok at It's Katharine Quinn. As always, if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, and subscribe. It actually helps my video a lot and lets the YouTube algorithm know what wonderful people to push this video out to, people just like you. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the comment section. Bye!